ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no rain with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for Tea Time Wagers with good friend and colleague, Mr. Brady Kannon. As I was talking to, of course, the producer in the house, Mr. Elijah Cox, backstage, I always bring Brady on backstage, and we have some great banter, some talk about the prior weekend, how life is, yada yada yada. And I said I was not going to do it this week because I want to give him the full stage to talk about what we witnessed last week at the Masters. I'm still as soon as it was over, Elijah texted me and said, "What a Masters." And I sent one word back, and I was speechless. I did the roller coaster of emotions. And when Rory finally sunk that putt to win the Masters, it was like an out-of-body experience. You could see the whole world just come off the back of his shoulders. He's been waiting 11 years for this. I think that was his 17th Masters, if I'm correct. Brady can correct me, obviously. But it was just an amazing weekend of golf. It will never be duplicated. And now, is this the year of Rory? He's now won 3 tournaments this year. Cooking with Crisco, as I like to say, and taking the week off this week. I can just imagine him and Lowry tied a few on, but we're going to have some fun today. So first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download the app. It is free. Viva Tequila Seltzer, 6 flavors in all. The East Coast is Cuckoo for coconut. And last but never least, AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Introduce yourself to Terry Smith on Facebook. Jump on back to AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Steaks, chops, seafood, appetizers, wines. Terry's got the whole board covered. He's got 4 subscription plans in all. Just set it and forget it, and every 30 days he will have you covered for your protein and more. So without further ado, Mr. Brady Kannon.
Mr. Dawson, boy, what a week, man. That was absolutely fantastic. And this is a great stretch of golf that I enjoy personally. Obviously, we love the Masters and Harbour Town. I love this tournament as well. And I played this course. I was lucky enough to play it about 5 years ago. And I've played, I want to say maybe 4. Yeah, I think I played 4 or 5 courses that they have played or still do play as a part of the PGA Tour rotation. And I think my favorite 2 for sure are the Plantation course at Kapalua in Maui and Harbour Town here in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Just and totally different. And that's what's neat about, the contrast of last week and this week. This massive property that is Augusta National that has all kinds of undulation and elevation change and bent grass greens and very little rough. And now we go to this claustrophobic little narrow coastal tree line fairways, relatively flat, no elevation change, on the marshes and the and the inlets and the intercoastal water in South Carolina, and Bermuda grass wall to wall. So, you know, they're both spectacular and almost entirely different. And I wrote about this in my article for golf.com. I thought this was kind of an interesting twist. You know, it's like they're polar opposites from one another, but also very similar. And you have Dr. Alistair McKenzie and his player consultant, if you will, one of the greatest of all time, and Bobby Jones, you know, probably maybe the greatest ever designer of golf courses in McKenzie, and certainly the greatest amateur golfer of all time in Bobby Jones, who kind of won a Grand Slam of his own, by the way, designed Augusta National. And who designed Harbour Town? Pete Dye, maybe the modern day designer of all time. And his little sidekick that was just getting into the design business that assisted him on this course, his player consultant, if you will, a guy by the name of Jack Nicklaus. So that's kind of a cool connection between, and only 140 miles apart, just a drive to the southeast from Augusta to Hilton Head, South Carolina. So the fact that I was able to get out there and play the course and fall in love with it and just kind of establish more of a connection with these last couple of weeks of golf is really super. Obviously, I'm burying the lead here, and that's what happened last week. I think the best Masters I've ever seen. You know, I fell in love with the Masters, probably the first one I can ever remember watching, kind of stumbled across it on TV in our living room, watching with my father as Nicklaus and his son walked up the 18th hole, you know, Nicklaus in 86, winning his 6th green jacket. Fell in love with that, have been watching ever since. I remember Phil's first major victory, you know, the jump when he cleared about a Snickers bar there on the 18th green. And Ernie Els, you know, on the driving range thinking he might miss that putt and force a playoff. Dustin Johnson in tears in 2020. Bubba Watson, the sand wedge that he hooked 100 yards around a corner, and, you know, Adam Scott. But I don't know if I've ever seen anything like Rory. And like you said, you used the word roller coaster. It truly felt like guys were in the back room going, okay, well, here's the way we're going to have the movie finish up. He'll put it into the water on 13, then he'll bogey 14 as well. And then Rose up ahead will birdie 18, a big, you know, 20-foot plus putt to get him to 11. And then we'll have him hit another incredible shot on 15 to set up eagle, but he'll miss that. I mean, it was absolutely like a movie. And then, like you talked about, you know, you and I have talked about the last couple of days, I had a ticket, a pre-tournament ticket at triple digits, 115-1 on Patrick Reed, who really should have been in the playoff as well. 3-putted from, you know, 3.5 feet on 13 rather than making birdie. He ends up with bogey. And then I've got Justin Rose at 110-1. I never thought, I thought the slimmest of chances existed for either one of these guys to be in the mix. I felt Rose probably had to shoot 63 and Reed probably had to shoot 64. And and obviously that's a long shot. And here we go. Lo and behold, at the end of the day, I've got Rose right there, maybe winning it in regulation into a playoff. Just absolutely unreal. I then, you know, and reflecting upon this after it finished and letting more and more of it soak in and going, you know, trying to wrap your head around what we just witnessed. And eventually I came to the conclusion, first of all, I said it's probably the best Masters I've ever watched, certainly the best final round I've ever watched. And could the saying ever be more true that the Masters doesn't begin until the second nine on Sunday? Wow. That was the greatest. That was exhibit A as far as that phrase goes. But I think the greatest final round in a major I've ever seen since the incredible duel that I felt was the greatest final round I had seen up until that point, the incredible duel at Royal Troon in 2016 between Henrik Stenson and Phil Mickelson. That was like Hagler versus Hearns. That was just trading punches back and forth. That was unbelievable. And this one was not necessarily the same, but certainly equaled, if not surpassed, in drama and electricity and excitement.
You know, we could have the whole show and play the recap here, and I don't want to do that. But, you know, just going from Thursday, Rory cruising at -4, and then double bogey. And the funny is watching social media, and he's 6 shots back. You know, he went from +725. He closed at +700, I think, at circa. You could have got him after Wednesday's round at +1400. And I saw a few people say, hey, this is a good jumping on point. And for the average golfer, a fan, oh, Jesus, he's 6 shots back. But if you do the basic math and say, okay, well, if you played him pre-flop at +700 and now he's 6 shots back, the books are only giving you +14. That's got to start to resonate. Okay, well, I still think, of course, as we know, there's 54 holes of golf left. In goes Friday, in goes Saturday. And now you're sitting there and you're just saying, okay, it's Sunday. People don't understand what you said. And I say it every alert I send for the Masters. Guys, I don't care what the scoreboard says. The tournament doesn't begin till the back 9 on Sunday. And they're looking at you like you have 25 heads. They just can't fathom that, Brady.
Oh, it's absolutely unreal. The other thing about Rory is, you know, that trend that's held up for, I want to say, in the neighborhood of 15, 20 years, that the winner has not come outside of the top 12 after day one. You know, maybe 19 out of the last 20, 18 out of the last 20, something like that. The winners have been inside the top 12, I believe, after the first day. And Rory was not. So, you know, you weren't sure about his chances, and kicking myself, certainly. You know, I think we may have talked about this last week on the show. For many years, we did a majors draft with a lot of the golf handicappers and bookmakers out here in Las Vegas. A lot of very popular names in the sports betting space, and it's a great get together. It's as much as a get together as it is a competition. We used to do it for every major, and that kind of ran out of gas a couple of years ago. And then we revived it this year for the Masters. And we're not going to do every major. We're just going to do the Masters and the British Open, which I think are kind of consensus-wise everybody's 2 favorites. So I have always partnered with Wes Reynolds, who's a great golf handicapper, and we've won these tournaments a few times. I think we've may have the best record of the group. I don't know, but anyway, we have a little powwow before the draft and say, you know, I said, I read your article, Wes. I know who your picks are. You've seen my article. You know who I'm on. I said, it looks like we're on the same page. You know, I like this guy. I want to fade this guy, blah, blah, blah. I said, you know, what do we do if we end up with the number 1 pick and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I really hope we don't get the number 1 pick. You know, I'd rather pick 3rd or 4th or 5th and whatever. Sure enough, we get the number 1 pick.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I'm like, I said, Rory is so overwhelmingly popular. I said, I don't, you know, we didn't want Scottie. We're like, you know, if it's between Scottie and Rory, we want Rory. And I'm the guilty one. He wanted to take Rory. He said, I feel like an idiot if I don't. And I said, but you're not an idiot. I said, he's just, you know, he's across the board, the most popular, the most tickets, the biggest liability. I said, I don't know if I want to go there. And so, you know, and then he starts researching. He says, well, you know, he's being faded over here. So anyway, I'll take I'll fall on the sword here. I'm the guilty party. We ended up taking Colin Morikawa with the first pick, and hindsight's 2020. We probably would have won the draft had we chosen Rory, but oh man, it was, you know, so that was kind of on my mind the whole time too. And then after he kind of screws up day one, I was like, oh, thank goodness, you know, I'm not on the hook here for talking Wes off of Rory McIlroy. But in the end, not only did like I say, it just, all the pieces fell into place like a movie script, literally, but it also fell into place perfectly for me as well with all my bets. The fact that it got to a playoff allowed me to isolate Rose and McIlroy. A new market pops up before the playoff begins, and I was able to bet Rory, and I would have, cashed a pretty big ticket with Justin Rose at 110 to 1. So I put exactly half of what those winnings would have been on Rory and guaranteed a profit. Turned out to be a profitable and wonderful Masters for me. And at the same time, even the perfect balance of this is the fact that I made money and I was thrilled that Rory won. I was never for 1 minute rooting against Justin Rose, because we all know he is the greatest guy in the world. He is probably more well-liked than any other golfer in the world, except for maybe Adam Scott. We always hear that those are two of the nicest guys in the professional ranks of golf. And what a class act he was. And he talked about how special it was to be on the 18th green with Rory during his moment. But at the same time, I'm so glad that I was able to make a couple bucks and have that Rose ticket come out as profitable, but at the same time, get McIlroy to the winner's circle, because had he lost, we joked about it, he literally might have quit the game. I mean, that would have been just so brutal. Now, Justin Rose, he ends up losing, finishes runner-up at the Masters for the third time, but he's fine. Thank goodness that Rory won.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to the new market, because as soon as it went to a playoff, I saw Rory minus 140 at one market. He was minus 130 at another market. When he had that 3-hole playoff where he won a few weeks ago, the number was short as well. And so when you saw that number, I mean, obviously, I thought of you immediately. I'm like, oh, my God. I didn't want to text you because I know how we roll. I'm like, I'm not texting them. But I just said to myself, oh, my God, what an opportunity here for you.
Oh, thank goodness. Otherwise, I would have lost. Had Rory won in regulation, I didn't have a shot.
Were you surprised at the number that low?
I was. I was. And I took a bad number, because originally I looked on Circa and they had Rory listed at minus 185. And I went, oh, boy. And then I went to BetMGM and I saw Rory minus 150. And I said, oh, wow. Okay, bang. And then as the market kind of truly populated and this playoff was really about to happen, I saw more like minus 140 or minus 145. So I'm like, well, damn, I missed a few. I think the true number was probably 140 to 145. That was pretty much the consensus number. And so I had minus 150, not awful, but originally I saw minus 185 and I was like, okay, that kind of made sense to me. And then the fact that it was much lower, I really thought I was getting the best of it. But hey, neither here nor there. I made money and our guy got to the winner's circle. It's the second time this year I have been granted, thankfully, an opportunity to hedge my bet, because you remember at the Players Championship, also at 110 to 1, I had JJ Spaun, who nearly won in regulation, ended up going to a playoff. And again, that gave me an opportunity to monetize, which thank goodness, because you hate to come that close with a triple digit long shot and not get anything for it. The funny part to all of this, and I can't remember if we talked about this or not, that's the third time that sucker Rory McIlroy has gotten me with a triple digit outright winner. It was in 2019 when he won the Players Championship and beat Jim Furyk by a stroke. Furyk finished runner-up. I had him at 125 to 1. Didn't get a chance to hedge that one. 2025, just a few weeks ago, I've got JJ Spaun at 110 to 1, finishes runner-up to Rory. Masters, I've got Justin Rose at 110 to 1, finishes runner-up to Rory. Boy, this guy loves to stick me when I've got a triple-digit figure on the line there. But thankfully, two out of the 3 times I was able to hedge and turn a profit. So
Well,
Rory's just fine.
it was funny because, Mr. Benson at the Circa posted a number on Saturday night, and I reached out to him Sunday morning as well on the yes no.
Yeah.
And I reached out to him. I says, "Well, let me see. Your risk room must be big Rory fans here because on the yes no, Rory versus the field, he was offering overnight plus 180 to anyone that wanted to bet Rory on the no. I
Uh-huh.
think it
Yeah. I saw plus 170.
and in the morning, I saw it was down to like 160. So the thought process very simply was, there were a lot of Rory haters out there, anyways, rooting against him. And Jeffrey Benson at the Circus says, "Hey, no pushing. We'll open up another line for you, and I'm going to give you plus 180 and plus 170." I'm like, that was another telltale sign here that, this is Rory's obviously to lose with the double to start, and there's DeChambeau in the lead. I'm like, oh dear, these guys are smiling early now.
Well, we talked about it on Sports Grid the night before that if Rory kind of is pedestrian out of the gate and Bryson makes a birdie or two, and all of a sudden the overnight price of minus 200 to win it becomes even money, it went all the way to plus 115, maybe plus 120. Now, I didn't jump in game. And we talked about that. I was kind of all out of bullets. I was just hoping to cash some top 20s and my head-to-head matchups, which, by the way, the head-to-heads, we hit 2 out of 3.
Yep.
So that worked out well. But I was just kind of like, okay, I don't have a whole lot of ammunition left to pull the trigger here. I'm just going to hope for the best. And boy, it did turn out quite spectacularly. But that was the other part of this movie script, the fact that it's Bryson versus Rory, that was incredible. And then the way it starts, and then thank goodness he beat the hell out of him too. I love that. So yeah, just one of the best. Like I said, probably the best Masters I've ever seen. Best final round I've ever seen since Stenson Mickelson at the British in 2016. Great stuff. And like I say, all the pieces fell exactly into place, just the way I would have wanted it to. Rory gets the green jacket, and I have a chance to make a profit with Rosie.
Well, again, we could talk for hours. I know you're busy here. I will do us justice in your tight schedule here. Let's move on to the RBC Heritage, April 17th through the 20th, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, par 71, yardage 7191. As we like to say, it used to be an elevated field, a signature event, which I always talk about the week before and the week after. These guys that got lathered up, like for the Kentucky Derby, some that were competing, some that didn't have a great weekend. Now they're back at it. Big stakes here. Thoughts moving into the RBC Heritage, Brady?
Well, I mentioned I love this tournament, and I love the fact that they have given it signature status because we get that field. It's for many years. I mean, it's kind of been a little bit of both. There's been some great fields out here in the past, and then not so much. But now the fact that it's signature, all the big names are there. It's such a good track, and it's such a contrast in style to Augusta. I just really like it. As far as the skill sets here, strokes gained approach and scrambling are very high on my list. And those are a couple of similarities to Augusta, high on my list for the Masters as well. Now, everything else is kind of different. Greens and regulation gained, driving accuracy, fairways gained, not an Augusta stat, that's for sure. Par fours, 400 to 450 yards, not an Augusta thing. Augusta's 450 to 500 yards. Strokes gained putting on Bermuda grass versus strokes gained putting on bent grass. Hole proximity from 125 to 200 yards here at Harbour Town. At Augusta, hole proximity from 200 yards or better. So, again, we talk about this big, massive, nearly 7,600 yard property down to a 7,200 yard property, and just so different in so many ways, and also so connected in a number of ways. As far as the correlated courses, again, it's those smaller, more congested golf courses, some being coastal tracks like Wailea, where they play the Sony Open, a lot of crossover success there. Valspar at the Copperhead course at Innisbrook, where we just had Victor Hovland win. Sea Island, home of the RSM Classic, where Maverick McNeely won this past fall. Colonial Country Club, the Charles Schwab Challenge there in Fort Worth, Texas. And then a real strong connection with another Pete Dye design, his masterpiece, TPC Sawgrass. We've seen a lot of crossover winners there too. Matt Kuchar, Webb Simpson, they have won both at Harbour Town and Sawgrass. So those are the correlated courses and the skill sets that I looked at this week.
Well, I'm looking to my right here. Scottie Scheffler, the favorite. I'm seeing right around plus 475. Colin Morikawa plus 980. Xander Schauffele plus 1,800. Oberg plus 1,700. Justin Thomas plus 2,250. Before we get to your releases and your head-to-heads here, we've seen now, 5 tournaments for Xander. We've seen a bunch of tournaments, obviously, with Scottie and his hand. I don't want to say this could be the year for Rory. He's already won 3 tournaments and a major here, the Masters. Scottie got to be sitting back here saying, all right, are we going to, the big favorite here? I'm not saying, listen, what did he do? Finish 4th?
He had an awful tournament, right? Had a chance to tie it up too. He got into the drama as well.
Is it time for him to make a statement here? And the same with Xander. I mean, the Masters is over. The season has officially begun here. Are we going to start to see the cream rising to the top here, Brady?
I think it's a great thought. It's, and I wouldn't be surprised if Scottie put his foot down and said, hey, slow down, everybody. I am still here. No, it wouldn't surprise me. I didn't go there because, and it's the same reason we didn't pick him for the Masters or take him in that, first pick in the draft. It just hasn't looked Scottie-like yet. Right. Finish 4th, finish 8th, finish 10th, whatever it is. He's still, it's like he does that in his sleep, but it hasn't been the same with what we've seen the past couple of seasons. He hasn't quite gotten to that point where I'm willing to, chew on a 4-1 to win a golf tournament or a 5-1. And who knows, maybe he'll drift a little bit. Probably not. He's still gonna finish top 5, top 10. And I may miss the boat on him when he does eventually win, because I'm sure he's going to win again. And it could be this week. I think you make a great point there. Conversely with Rory, I don't know if you saw this, but Shane Bacon, who did a very nice job. I think he was on the play-by-play for the Paramount stream of the Masters. And thank goodness we had that, had expanded coverage this year, finally, with Augusta. And my friend Colt Nost was assisting him there with that broadcast. But Shane, boy, he drank the Kool-Aid. He got wrapped up in all the hoopla. After it was all over, he said, boy, I think you can make a real case for Rory just to go ahead and win, all the majors the rest of the year. And he came out and he said, he's going to win the PGA. We know that because it's at Quail Hollow, where he's won 3 or 4 times already. And then he said, the U.S. Open sets up really well for him with this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then the Open Championship, it's in Northern Ireland. I mean, he's going to win there too, right? Because it's in his hometown. And I usually don't make too many comments and everything, but I said, the overreaction Sunday bus is driving down Narrative Street at a record pace. My goodness. So Scottie, slow down, people, slow down. I think Rory is an absolute fade at the PGA at this point. because, whereas Scottie, like you're saying, might be, it's okay, it's time to jump on his back. At least for the next major, I think Rory is maybe a colossal fade, because even when you know what Scottie did when we went to Southern Hills and Justin Thomas won the PGA. Scottie Scheffler, a month prior had won his first major championship, his first ever Masters. You know what he did at Southern Hills? He missed the cut. I wouldn't be surprised if Rory McIlroy did the same thing. Are you kidding me? I mean, did you see what this guy, how he reacted on the 18th green? You think he's going to be ready to win again, 30 days from now? He's going to be still drunk 30 days from now. No. And I said it on Sports Grid. I said he's going to be the favorite because of his history at Quail Hollow, where they're having the PGA, where he's won the Wells Fargo a number of times, including last year when he absolutely stomped Xander on Sunday. So there's going to be all this attention. Hey, Rory just did this. The career Grand Slam. Now he's going to this place. And no, I think he's set up for a go against in this case in a big way. And at the same time, a guy who has finished runner-up at Quail Hollow for the last 2 Wells Fargo championships, who I think could be, and another name you mentioned, I think could be a really good sneaky play at the PGA Championship, maybe make it 2 in a row, is Xander Schauffele. I looked at the number last night. I think it was 16. I'd love to get 18. But we'll see where it goes. But yeah, my initial reaction on the year of Rory, yeah, he's absolutely the leader in the clubhouse right now for Player of the Year and all that good stuff. And I'm not a fan like you are, but I'm a Rory fan, and I'm thrilled for him. But I'm also, a realistic sports bettor, and I think next up at the PGA is fade Rory territory, not jump on the bandwagon and watch him sweep the majors in 2025.
Shout out to Mr. Jay Berry. Shout out to Mr. Sean Alvarez, Mr. Smooth as always, and of course, Mr. Brian Gaskell. Brian's got a question before we get your outrights here. See if I can say this correctly. Question about math of creating an outright betting card. How many X your total initial investment is good value if one of your picks wins the event? Is 5X too chalky of a card? And he says, also forgot 5X is also playing only 3 outrights, Brady.
Okay, so what you're saying is, like, if you've got, are you making one pick at 100 to 1, or you're making 5 or 6 different picks, and by the time you look at what your investment is versus what your possible return is, your odds are now really 5 to 1. Is that what he's saying, if I'm understanding correctly?
Brian,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe he'll follow up here on that.
Well, question. I can tell you what I think he's saying, and it's a great question because, I typically play 5 or 6 outrights, to win a golf tournament. So if they're all at 10 to 1, then that's not really a great return, right? And we've been doing this long enough. I'll usually have a couple guys that are, towards the top of the board, sometimes single digits, 9 to 1, 10 to 1. Usually I'm more in the neighborhood of 18, 20, 25, and then I'll go to a guy that's 30 or 40 and then to 80, and then I might have a couple of bombs at 100 to 1 or whatever. But again, with how much I have invested and how much, I could possibly win, I would say usually I end up somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10 to 1. Okay. So if my investment is X, my possible return might be 8X. Do you know what I mean? So are you with me there?
Yeah. He followed up 3 picks spending, let's say $200. So 1,000 to 1,200 return if any one of them wins. When I send out
that's 10 to 1. That's 10X, right?
Yes.
Which I think is great. Yeah, no, I think if you're in that window, that's a very good money management job there. I mean, again, if you're spending a certain amount of money and you've got 5 or 6 outrights all at 10 to 1, you're not doing yourself many favors.
So if we were going to use this as an example, let's just say he fell on Scottie this week. Well, I'm just going to say 5-1 Scottie. And then
Right.
let's say you got a 20-1. And then let's just say you fell on a 50-1. So you technically would have to have about 120 on Scottie, and then you'd probably have about 40 on the 20-1, and then you would then probably have the change on the 50-1, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And that brings up, so let's say you've got roughly $200 invested, and on Scottie, you're going to win. Yeah. Yeah. So that's about a 5x return, right?
Correct.
And I don't think that's bad either. If you've made the choice to bet on the favorite in Scottie or Rory or whoever it is any particular week, that's going to cut into that card a little bit. Maybe you play less outrights or whatever. But that's a part of the question too, is how do you bet outrights? Some people put $50 or $100 or $20 or whatever it is on every guy. I don't do that. First of all, the outright market is where I spend the least amount of risk, because it's basically the hardest to hit. I'm going to invest more money in head-to-head matchups and more money in top 20 finishes and things like that. But if I'm betting Scottie at 5-1, I'm going to put, $200 on him. Okay. Because I'm trying to win a grand. Okay. Let's say you're trying to win $1,000. And then I'm going to bet accordingly to all the way down to my guy that's 150-1. I'm going to put, $8 on him or something like that. Right. So that's the way I treat the outright market, because I don't want to invest the same amount of dollars on a guy that's 125-1 as I do on a guy that's 10-1. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I think in your money management system, and one part of the equation is, what are you overall looking for that win potential to be? 5x, 8x. I think in that 5x to 10x window is pretty reasonable. And less than 5, you might be costing yourself too much. But the second part of that question is, and I believe that, in my opinion, the better way to do it is to set a number at what you're trying to win with each selection. Is it $1,000? Is it $500? Is it $5,000? What is it? $10,000? What are you trying to win here? And then I just bet accordingly with what that particular golfer's price is.
And Brian says, perfect explanation. Thanks. And in a perfect world, if he started on a 10-1, you put 100 on that equals 1,000. If he had a 20-1, you put 50 on that. Obviously, that equals 1,000. And then if he got a 50,
that's the way I play it. Yeah.
50-1, put 20, and the 100-1, you put 10, and you hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
So, a lot of times people go, wow, you had Justin Rose at 110-1. That's, insane. Well, not necessarily. I would have made the same money on Justin Rose at 110-1 as I would have made on Colin Morikawa at 20-1. So I've risked more on Morikawa, but anyway, it's not like I'm going down to the sports book to collect 25 grand because I had Justin Rose at 110-1. I don't bet that way.
No, and that's the smart way. So you're outright, sir.
Yeah, let's get to him. Patrick Cantlay. This guy is like an auto bet at Harbour Town. He's finished third here 4 times. He's finished runner-up once, and he's also finished 7th once. He's got 2 top 5 finishes already this season. Comes off of a 12th place finish last month at the Players Championship, which we mentioned is a correlated course. Last 36 rounds, 16th in this field for strokes gained approach, 9th on those par 4s that are 400 to 450 yards. Corey Connors, 25-1. He was a sharp play to win the Masters, and he was right there. And this guy, that's now 5 top 10 finishes in 10 starts. Half the time this season, he's finishing top 10. And 2 of those include a 6th at the Players Championship and an 8th at the Valspar, 2 of our correlated courses. 8th again last week at the Masters. Number 1 in this field for greens in regulation gained, and top 20 for hole proximity in all distances between 125 and 100 and 200 yards. So Corey Connors at 25-1, Daniel Berger at 45-1, very popular pick this week. I've noticed Wes Reynolds is on him as well. My good friend Wes, we landed on the same one there. He's been as high as 3rd here before at the RBC Heritage. He's won at Colonial, comes off of a 21st place finish at the Masters. His record at TPC Sawgrass is outstanding. And he just finished runner-up last fall, by the way, at the RSM Classic, Sea Island, another one of our correlated courses. 3rd in driving accuracy in this field, fairways gained, 13th in greens and regulation gained, and 18th in scrambling. Berger, I think, makes a lot of sense this week. And then basically 3 longer bombs after that. Lucas Glover at 80-1. Now, he missed the cut last week at the Masters, but was 3rd at the Players Championship and 6th at the Valspar back in March. He's played this event over 20 times, multiple top 20 finishes. He has finished top 10 at each one of our correlated courses, and he's number 1 in this field for driving accuracy, fairways gained, 6th for strokes gained approach, 6th in hole proximity from 150 to 175, and 10th on those par 4s, 400 to 450 yard par 4s. Bud Colley at 90-1. This guy has 3 straight starts of finishing top 6 or better, and that includes a 4th at the Players Championship and a 6th at the Valspar. 10th in this field for greens and regulation gained, 20th in scrambling, 6th for hole proximity from 175 to 200, and 4th in strokes gained tee to green the last 36 rounds. And then finally, this one is kind of interesting. Michael Kim, and I got him at better than 100-1, 105-1. I've also seen as low as 66-1. I think the consensus price is probably about 80 or 90-1. And it's kind of interesting because his history at this course and some of the correlated courses is awful. But we've also seen what Michael Kim has kind of become the last couple of years. He is the real deal. And now, you know, in the top 50 in the world as far as the world golf rankings. He's missed the cut here at Harbour Town 3 times. He's missed the cut at the Players 4 times and 3 times at Colonial. But a couple of years ago in 2023, he also finished 6th at Colonial. So I think what we're dealing with is old Michael Kim and current Michael Kim. Michael Kim 5-6 years ago was not very good at all. That's why he's missed 3 cuts at Harbour Town and 4 at the Players and whatever. But Michael Kim the last couple of years is a very good player. He's become so vastly improved in the last couple of seasons. That's why I took a shot with this guy. He makes sense in all the stat crunches. If you look at what he's done, like the last 5 events between the Phoenix Open and the Arnold Palmer Invitational this year, 2nd, 13th, 6th, 4th. Pretty darn good current form. Oh, by the way, he was also 27th at the Masters last week in only his 2nd time playing the Masters. Now here's a perfect example of the dichotomy or the improvement that we've seen in Michael Kim's brief career. His debut at the Masters was 2019. He missed the cut. Fast forward 6 years later, he finishes 27th. That's the difference, what we're seeing here. So I don't necessarily mind all the missed cuts and whatnot that he has here at Harbour Town on the correlated courses. I think he's a totally different player the last couple of years. Last 36 rounds, okay, that's pretty important. 3rd in this field for strokes gained tee to green. 11th for strokes gained approach. 12th in scrambling. 13th on the 400 to 450 yard par 4. So I think that's more of the Michael Kim that we're expecting to get here this week. Wouldn't be surprised at all by a top 20 finish. And he's the type of player I think that could go ahead and win the thing.
You can't lay in Connors, both top 10, the rest top 20s?
Exactly. Yes. The price, I mean, obviously we've only got 70 some players in the field. I think it was supposed to be 72, but one player dropped out or something. Maybe it was Rory. Rory actually never committed. That's kind of interesting too. Rory must have known he was going to win the Masters. He never committed to this golf tournament a while ago. This wasn't last minute. Somebody may have, I think maybe Matsuyama dropped out. He's not going to be here either. I think it's 71 players in the field. So obviously, you're not getting huge prices on top 20 finish. And when you're dealing with somebody as short as Cantlay and Connors, 20 and 25 to 1 respectively, you were paying a pretty heavy price for a top 20. And I don't really mind doing that. And I don't discourage it. If you've got the bankroll, go ahead, and I would almost rather lay the price. But I just didn't get there. I played it a little bit more conservatively dollars wise, and took like the plus 160, plus 170 or whatever for those guys to finish top 10. And I mean, the way Cantlay goes around here, we would hope to get that one anyway.
Any head-to-heads?
I didn't do any head-to-heads. Maybe I'll come up with something later, but been kind of a whirlwind here off of Augusta. And if I do get any, I'll send them to you or whatever, and you can publish them for your audience. But did great with the head-to-heads last week at Augusta, and just haven't gotten there yet, Jeff, to be quite honest.
Well, it's been hectic. It's been busy. Working overtime as always, and we have you working overtime here. I apologize. Everyone here knows where to follow you on Twitter at Las Vegas Golfer, of course. Where can they find your written work and, of course, your Sports Grid schedule this week?
Yeah, pretty typical with the schedule this week. Back to normal. No more Masters coverage, but the article for the outrights is up at golf.com. It's also listed there on my Twitter handle at Las Vegas Golfer. We're on the grid later today at 7:30 p.m. and then again this evening at 10 p.m. with Gabe. And then I won't be on the grid this weekend. This is my first break since last July, I believe. After the Masters, I'm going to go get some R&R for about 4 days this weekend.
Well earned and deserved, Brady. We can't thank you enough. Enjoy yourself. Have a great little mini vacation. We'll catch up with you next Wednesday.
Enjoy Harbour Town, my friend. One of my favorites.
You take care. Elijah, quick commercial break, and we'll wrap it up. Stay tuned. I could talk hours with that gentleman, and I do, about golf and what we witnessed over the weekend at the Masters. Big shout out to everyone that was here and witnessing and asking questions. Mr. Brian Gaskell, of course, Mr. Jay Berry, Mr. Sean Alvarez. Make sure everyone goes and follows Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golfer. Check out his written work, of course, and catch him on the Sports Grid. Big shout out to Mr. Elijah Cox, as always, for helping us produce this show. Myself and Riley Magnuson will be back. We're scheduled at 4. I think it'll be a lot sooner. We get some day baseball here, maybe around 2 o'clock. Keep an eye on us for the closing bell. Tomorrow, travel day for me. I'll be heading to Albuquerque, New Mexico with the food truck festivals. We have an event on Saturday. Unsure of my marching orders for Friday. So if I can, I'm going to squeeze a show or two in Albuquerque. If not, we will be back as always on Monday with Scotty Webb at 10:30 in the morning talking some baseball. So for myself, Jeff Dawson, EC Sports Invest, Mr. Elijah Cox, and of course, Mr. Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golfer. We wish everyone a blessed afternoon. See you guys in a couple hours. Stay tuned.